Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Maureen O'Connor from Quilters Heaven in Northbrook, Illinois, and I am the Opinionated Quilter. Today's episode number 113 is Quilt Layouts for Orphan Blocks. Stay tuned for the winner of the Geisha Girl quilt and the announcement of this week's giveaway. But before we get to that, I want to clarify something from last week. As I looked at our video, it was so difficult to see on the real sample of the stitch and flip for the scarecrow quilt that I decided to draw it so that you could maybe see it just a little bit better. Here is, say, your base block, and then you lay another square on top. And if your stitch and flip is going to be pressed up this way, then your stitching line is just north to the top of this center line. If you're going to flip down this way, you're just a little tidge on this side. And then, I'm not sure if I made this part clear enough. Before I trim off the excess, I press this the direction it's supposed to go. Then I turn it over and trim. So when you turn it over and trim, you get anything off that extends beyond your base square. Once you cut this off, you don't have that part of your base square left. It's only your flipped piece. So I want to make sure that my flipped piece is going to be the exact same size as the base square. And I'm sure many of you are old enough and many of you are not old enough to remember Mary Ellen Hopkins. When she did this technique, she had you press it up and then not remove the bottom. And to me, that created too much bulk. But what it did do is it left that base fabric on there, so you always knew exactly what the correct sizing should be. That's enough of the stitch and flip. Let's get to some quilt layouts. Have you ever gotten that call from your friend saying their mother passed away and she was a quilter and she has a lot of stuff, knowing that you're a quilter? Did you want it? I know many of us have. It could also be people downsizing and not having enough room and getting fabric donations. Well, I get things that have blocks made in them. And also, sometimes I make something and I've made trial blocks, sample blocks to see if I like the fabric combinations. So oftentimes we create extra orphan blocks ourselves, and sometimes we get them from others. Now, my first choice is to put those blocks into a back. Doesn't always work for whatever reason. Sometimes you just have extra blocks. Behind me here are 6 blocks that I got in a bag recently. And let's see if I can point out what the block is. The block is here. It's a big block. And there were 6 of them in there. So it was very easy to see that putting them 3 rows of 2 would work really great. And I really liked the black and white. There was all kinds of other black and white cut pieces in the donation box. So I ended up putting this border on it and then the squares. And you can't see up here, but in the 4 corners, I have a colored block. So I think this is going to be a very nice Project Linus donation quilt. They're always looking for teen size quilts. So I think this is going to work out great for that. But what if you don't have a number as easy as 6? You could have all kinds of things. You could have one block, in which case it'd be pretty hard to make a quilt. Project Linus minimum size is 36 by 36. Those kinds of things I make into a candle mat. I know you've seen me do those before. I've made a tote bag with one extra block. But you can really make a quilt out of anything, I think, over one. You could do one if you put enough borders on it. But I just want to show some possibilities with different numbers of blocks for you. Obviously, two, you could stack them, and you could put borders around them first, and then put them together, and then put some more borders around them. It's depending how much fabric you got that kind of coordinates with it, or if you have things in your stash that would work. 3 blocks can be a little tricky, but we all have fabric in our stash. When you don't have enough pieced blocks and you don't want to make more pieced blocks, you can always put in excess fabric from your stash. So my example of a 3 is putting one upper left, middle, and lower right, and just using extra fabric here. You could put them in block form if you wanted to. You could just put them in large pieces. Whatever works for you, depending on how big the blocks are. Couple more borders, big enough for a quilt. 4 is as easy as 6, 2 by 2. Same thing as before. You could put sashing in between. In quilting, the possibilities are just endless. You just look at what you have and say what will work here. So that's an easy one. 5 is a great number for on-point quilts. You can do 1, then the next row 3, and then 1 again. It makes a square quilt. Put as many borders on it as you want. You've got a great quilt. Here's my 6, which is what I did. That's easy. But what if you have 7? Well, you can just put in extra fabric here. Do 2, then 3, then 2, and with 2 extra non-pieced blocks, or you could just piece something to put in there. 8 is another perfect number for an on-point quilt. 1, then 3, then 3, then 1 makes 8. And also, if you wanted to, if you had 6, you could make these 2 blocks just a solid fabric, something from your stash. If you wanted to do on point with 6, just do 2 alternate blocks and it works. 9, super easy, 3 by 3. But any number you can take that you can lay out in the size you want is going to work. If you don't have enough, you just put a solid piece of fabric in there instead of a pieced block. There's so many ways you can take your orphan blocks and make them into something. And it's usually a lot of fun to try to figure out what you want to do. That's it for orphan blocks. Let's get to the winner of the Geisha Girl quilt. The winner of the Geisha Girl quilt is Wendy Silverthorne Duggan 189. Wendy, please email me at quiltersheaveninc@gmail.com with your information so I can get that quilt out to you. Thanks for watching. This week's giveaway is a little small wall hanging. I'm calling it Geometric Fun. I have no idea what book it's from. I know I made it. I like it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just have so many quilts to quilt. I would rather give this away to one of you who would like to have it. So in order to be entered to win, you need to like the video, make a comment, put Geometric Fun in the comment, and subscribe to my channel. and you will be entered to win this little wall hanging. That's today's episode. Until next time, happy sewing.